Welcome to the Happier and Healthier podcast. I'm your host, Maria Marlowe, and this is a place where we don't rely on good luck or good genes for our health and happiness, but rather we create it with our thoughts and our actions each and every single day. Each week, I'll bring you a thought or a guest that will help you live your happiest and healthiest life. Are you ready? Welcome back to the Happier and Healthier podcast. Today's episode is all about mental health. This is a topic I love talking about because I feel there's still a stigma around it that needs to be broken. In recent years, culturally, we're talking about mental health now more than ever before, but I still feel there's a long way to go. Despite all the advocacy around it, I feel it's still common for people to feel alone when they feel feelings of anxiety or depression or even worse. And a lot of times people still feel too embarrassed to get help for these feelings. Today's guest, Maurice Benard, is an Emmy Award-winning actor who has been openly discussing his mental health struggles for the past few decades and doing a lot to rid our society of the stigma around it. In fact, he had his struggle with bipolar disorder written into the script for his character, Sonny on General Hospital, of which he has starred for nearly 30 years. He's here to discuss his memoir, Nothing General About It, How Love and Lithium Saved Me On and Off General Hospital. Now, while Maurice does acknowledge and credit holistic practices for helping him deal with his mental health struggles, he also sings the praises of the prescription drug lithium for saving him. As a very holistic show, you know that first and foremost, I advocate for holistic diet and lifestyle changes to heal our health. But I invited him on because I think it's important to have multiple viewpoints and acknowledge that everyone is on their own journey and needs to find what works best for them. Additionally, I love that he's making getting help for mental health more mainstream, and his motivational story offers lessons in perseverance and just demonstrates the importance of believing in yourself, even in the darkest of times. If you're interested in a deeper discussion on holistic strategies to improve your mental health, we touch on them a little bit here, but a deeper discussion will be in some of my earlier podcast interviews with holistic psychiatrists, Dr. Ellen Youre and Dr. Kelly Brogan, and there's also a great episode with holistic psychologist, Dr. Ellie Cobb. Are you interested in cooking healthier at home, but don't know where to start? I'm here to help. If you want to learn how to make healthy food taste delicious at home, sign up for my brand new online cooking course, Healthy by Marlowe Cooking School. This completely digital program will teach you the skills you need to whip up flavorful, craveable, nutrition-packed meals, mostly in 25 minutes or less. You'll learn how to chop, sear, saute, roast, and steam like a pro. Unlike most cooking courses, which focus solely on technique with no regards to health, in this cooking course, we'll focus on technique, nutrition, and flavor so that you and your family actually look forward to eating healthy food. By the end of this 4-week class, you'll feel more comfortable and confident in the kitchen and leave with more than a dozen easy recipes that you can alternate and repeat. You'll even learn how to whip up a nutritious, flavorful, craveable meal with whatever ingredients you have on hand. No recipe needed. To join, head to mariamarlowe.com/cooking-school and sign up today. If you're looking to improve your health, and especially if you want to improve your digestion, you have to check out the probiotic brand Hyperbiotics. It's the most effective probiotic that I've found on the market, and it's the brand that I personally use and recommend to all of my clients. It's so effective because it's made with 15 different strains of probiotics that have been scientifically shown to benefit digestive and overall health, including weight management, reproductive health, and mood. They're also clinically shown to be 15 times more effective than the common probiotic capsules that you'll find at the health food store. Hyperbiotics has helped many of my clients and myself get rid of bloating, increase regularity, and maintain a flat stomach and healthy digestion. For being so high quality, you expect them to be super expensive, but they're extremely affordable at just $25 for a 1-month supply, Plus, you get an additional 20% off with the code HYPERMARIA. Head to hyperbiotics.com, that's HYPERBIOTICS.com, and use the code HYPERMARIA for 20% off. If you're looking for all-natural skincare products without harsh chemicals, useless fillers, or other nasty things you don't want in your bloodstream, check out Primally Pure. It's a California-based skincare line that started from a farm, so you can bet that all the ingredients are all natural yet extremely effective. I love their beauty cream, fancy face serum, and deodorant. Head to primallypure.com and use code MARIA10 for 10% off your order. Maurice, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So first, congratulations. I know your book just hit the New York Times bestseller list, and I'd love for you to share a little bit about your story. But first, why was it so important for you to share your story about mental illness and overcoming it?
Well, I've been sharing it or talking about it or however you want to say for like over 30 years. And it was important for me. Well, there's a story that I say in the book where I was in the mental institution and they put you in a seclusion room when you're a bad boy, which means it's 4 walls and you're strapped down to a bed. And all I wanted to do was get out of that room. And this whole thing I broke this latch off the wall and I started praying because I was thinking of doing myself in. And then I broke the latch and made it into a cross and put it by my bed. And I was praying to God, and I knew at that moment, deep, deep down inside, there was a reason why that was happening to me. And I think now I positively know this is the reason.
Yeah, I think often we have to make our mess our message. And when we're going through something really tough, it can seem, we can ask like, why me? Why me? But then we are, very fortunate to be able to help other people who are going through that similar issue. So that's incredible. So let's take it back a little bit, and I'd love for you to share a little bit more about your story. You were diagnosed with bipolar disorder when you were about 20. So sort of walk us through that. How did you feel when this happened? And then how did this affect your life?
Well, what it was I was 21 in the mental institution, and I had my 22nd birthday in there, which was not fun. But nobody could tell me what was wrong with me. They couldn't say what I had or what was going on. And I was like Jack Nicholson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Because he was the normal one, somewhat normal, and everybody else was worse than him. So when I left the hospital, when I escaped, it was about a couple months after that I went to see a guy named a psychiatrist named Dr. Noonan. And I remember sitting in the chair and him not looking at me, but writing a lot of stuff down, what I was saying. And at the end, he looked up and he said, "You're manic depressive, and I'm going to put you on lithium. It's going to take a little while, but you're going to get better." And I felt like, wow, okay, at least I know what I have. And that was it. It took a while to get better, but that was it, the beginning.
Well, in the title of your book is Nothing General About It, How Love and Lithium Saved Me On and Off General Hospital. So where did the love part come in, and how did that help in your healing?
Well, the love part came in when I met my wife. She was 16, then she turned 17, and we pretty much started living together soon after that, and we've been together over 30 years. Yeah, I mean, look, my wife and I, there's a lot of deep love there, and I can pretty much, it's safe to say that I don't know if I'd be here if she didn't help me. It'd be real tough. I mean, I know I did it on my own, the first breakdown, which was the hardest, and I can't believe I did it on my own. I had my mom and dad there, but they would have to go to work while I was home alone. That was tough. But I'm still going through things, and my wife is still helping me out. even the last 2 weeks, I had two major panic attacks, and it took a couple of weeks to get through it. And when you're in these things, you think you can't, but the reality is you can't.
Yeah, and you've been living with this for quite some time and working. You have a pretty high stress, intense job, right? As an actor, I'm sure it's quite hectic and there's a lot going on all the time. So how have you really managed to, get through work and get through life with these issues? Are there any practices that you use, any daily practices, or what has really been helpful for you to still be successful at life? Because I feel like a lot of times when people feel depressed or are anxious, our careers suffer or our relationships suffer. So how were you able to kind of pull through all of this?
Well, as far as like my nervous breakdowns or, being bipolar, I haven't had an episode in 27 years because I stay on my medication. I stress. If you find something that works, stay on your medication, seek professional help. Yes, you can buy my book and that may help you, but that's not enough. I've been able to do it, obviously, with my wife and my kids, and my mom and dad early on they were just incredible. And what I do now, I mean, I can speak because I've been doing it because I had 2 panic attacks 2 weeks ago. You got to get out of bed, man. Because when I stay in bed, when I wake up, I have maybe some negative thoughts. And if I stay in bed too long, that's going to cause depression. So what I do is I get out of bed and I kind of made my own routine here. Because you have to understand, I was on a routine going to work for 27 years. That's what I knew. And now with coronavirus, that's all changed. So what I do now is I get up, I work out, I meditate, I go play with my goats. And
Nice.
yeah, and that's kind of what's helped me. And you have to stay out of, like I always say, don't let the movie in your head be bigger than the virus. I know the virus is big, but if it's our own minds that make it worse.
Yeah, it's really easy to get stuck in negativity and just thoughts that don't serve us. But I think the two of the things that you mentioned, exercise and the meditation, personally, I found those really helpful for my mental health more than anything else, more than the physical health. So how did you get into meditation and how long have you had a meditation practice? And for anyone who's listening who is not maybe hesitant to meditate, but feels they don't have the time or they don't know how, what advice would you give them?
Well, here's my problem. My problem is, as far as meditation and things like that, workout I've always done. But meditation, I kind of don't do it, even though I should, until I have to. So in the last 2 weeks, I've been meditating, and it has helped. And Charlemagne the God, I was on his show, and he recommended an app called Calm, and it's a fantastic app. And it gives you a different meditation every day for 10 minutes. I just did it outside. It was great. But the thing that got me back in this last 2 weeks was really working out. Because what happened is I told my mind, even though it was very difficult, I said, I'm sick of being sick. You know what I mean? So I went out in my garage and I started working out and I felt that fight back. And with the fight back, it felt really good, at least for a moment. And then I started working out every day after that. And it really has helped.
Yeah, I feel it's always that initial first time of getting back into the routine or getting back to the gym. That's the hardest. But once you do it, you feel so good that doing it a second and a third time becomes easier.
Yes. Yes. And then there's also, you have to eat well. And it's a lot of things. I mean, take vitamin D. I've been taking vitamin D and some other stuff. And you just got to take care of yourself and stay out of your negative thoughts. That's a killer right there.
Yeah. because it is really easy to go down that spiral. But I think having these lifestyle practices in our life and incorporating them into our life more regularly as habits, like the exercise, the meditation, the healthy eating, that really helps keep them at bay as much as possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course, they always creep back in here and there. So, I mean, anything someone can do in the moment, like if someone's in a negativity spiral right now, is there anything in the moment that's worked for you?
Well, for me, I got to tell you, when I was in a panic attack, it's in my book, but I've gotten off 2 planes. I've had them open the doors, and that's a tough thing. But now I've managed to get on planes because I just breathe. I breathe in 4 times, hold it 4 times, and breathe out 4, 5, or 6 times. And that's the pattern. And if you can breathe through your anxiety attack. You can breathe through it, and it calms it down completely. So that's one thing. And I have a thing that I do called State of Mind every Sunday on Instagram story. I've been doing it for over a year, speaking about mental illness, my life with mental health. And I call anxiety Freddy Krueger. So sometimes I wake up at night and Freddy's looking at me, but you can't run. You got to stay and fight Freddy. And by fighting him, I mean breathing, and you get rid of him. And sometimes, like the last 2 weeks ago, he got the best of me for 2 nights. But I'm still standing. So,
Yeah. And I'm glad that you mentioned breath work because I find that's a really powerful tool as well, especially in the moment, because it immediately calms our nervous system down and takes us out of that fight or flight mode. So breath work is, just an incredible free tool we always have at our call and we can always, do in the moment.
Absolutely. It's breathing is in the moment, and maybe pace around just a bit to get rid of some of that energy. That somewhat helps. But don't keep pacing, because then you're going to screw yourself up.
Yeah. And actually, I was watching one of your recent Instagram stories when you were talking about stress and anxiety, and you had said something that I think that I just want to share because I think it's so important. You were talking about how if you break your bone, you will go to the hospital or go to the doctor and get it fixed. But if you, break your brain, so to speak, or if something's not going on or something's not right mentally, we are so scared or we don't want to go and get help for it. I think there's this big stigma around it. So do you want to just share a little bit more about that and maybe how you got over it or, some tips that could be helpful?
Well, yeah, that was on my last Instagram, actually, State of Mind. Look, I went to work one day with a cut on my arm. It was a pretty decent cut. And people thought that I had gangrene. They couldn't stop talking about it. But I've gone to work literally on the verge of I don't know what. You get me? And everybody's just, oh, you'll get over it. Oh, yeah, I had anxiety 5 years ago. And it's such a total difference of, obviously, because you don't see it. And unless you've gone through what I've gone through, or other people with panic attacks and nervous breakdowns and depression, you don't understand it because you don't see it. But yet, a cut on my arm, I was sent right to the doctor. But me crying in the corner of my room with anxiety, I just went right upstairs, did my scenes. Oh, man, now I'm breathing heavy just talking about that.
Sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
Yeah, it's just interesting how as a society, we kind of shove the emotions under the rug and kind of teach people to put on a tough face and to maybe not share our feelings or to, like you said, just all right, go downstairs and give your lines, like, don't worry about it, you'll get over it kind of thing, versus a physical illness. They're like, okay, you need to go to the doctor right now and get this fixed.
And I will say this, there is nothing, although the truth is I've never broken a bone or had a stitch, But there is nothing in my life that I felt more painful than depression, anxiety, or a manic episode. There's nothing more terrible for me than that. But the reality is, no matter how terrible it is, no matter how fragile I am, because I'm very strong in one way and fragile in the other, you can get through it. That's the key. It's not so terrible that you can't get through it, because you can. And I'm living proof, and I'm still going through it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the important thing to keep in mind, is that you can get through this and you're stronger than you think. And I'm just really glad that you are using your platform to share and talk about this, because I think you sharing your story will help other people get the help that they need. So it's really
You know,
great that you're being so forthcoming. Whereas I think a lot of people, especially in your position, may keep this behind closed doors.
especially men. Men don't want to talk about it still. Women are, Lovato, and there's quite a few other women who are talking about mental health, but men seem to not want to talk about it. The responses I get from people over the past, I don't know how long, but one just hit me, and it's not even a big deal. One woman just wrote, because it's state of mind, she says, I watch. And she said, one thing that by watching you, I don't feel alone. And I don't know why that hit me, because I guess I was figuring out what's going on with people. They're into this, but I don't really get it. And I mean, I get it, but not, but by her saying that she's not alone meant so much to me. And that's why I continue to do it, because I was thinking, here I am talking on this thing. No one's responding back to me. It's just me doing a little monologue. You know what I mean? And I said,
Yeah.
what are people? Okay, cool. It's about mental health, and then I realized how many people are suffering from mental health. It is staggering how many people. And I'll tell you, I get responses from people who are like, I don't know what to do. My son is on the verge of wanting to end his life. And, I get a bunch of responses like that. It is what it is,
Yeah, I think that it's bad enough to have these feelings of depression or anxiety or worse. But what makes it worse is that people do feel alone, and they feel like they're the only one that's experiencing it, and maybe they feel like something is wrong with them. Whereas the reality is, I think every human goes through these periods and emotions at different times in their lives. And I think that our diet and our lifestyle and our habits can play a really big role in mitigating some of these things. So again, yeah, just sharing, I think talking about it and having this conversation in the public
Yeah.
versus keeping it behind closed doors is the best thing that we can do.
Yeah, I don't know, honestly, if Nothing General About It would have done as well without the coronavirus. Because I think people,
Well, yeah,
I think people in these
people are
times,
experiencing depression and anxiety. I feel like now more than ever, I think it's really bringing everything to the surface.
yeah, completely. It did with me. So I can imagine other people. It's like, wow.
Yeah. So I had read an interview with you, and you had spoken about finding your joy a couple of years and finding happiness. Can you share a little bit about that? Like, what was that turning point for you, and how did you find your joy and your happiness?
Well, what's funny is I just talked to my psychiatrist about what you're saying, because he hadn't heard about this, because I hadn't talked to him in a while. But now I'm talking to him, thank God. I said, look, I played John Gotti in a movie, and it was a hell of an experience. The producer wasn't a fan of mine, and it made my life miserable. But I got through it, and I felt proud that I got through it. Now, not that long after that, I've always had this feeling in my gut since I was a kid, since I was little, and it wasn't a nice feeling. It was an ugly feeling, but I accepted it. And then when I got older, I accepted that I'm bipolar, and that's why I have this feeling. Well, a couple months after John Gotti, that feeling that I had for 57 years was gone. And what I realized was I felt joy now for the first time. Now, I've been happy, of course, my kids being born and everything, I'm happy, but that real inside joy I haven't had. And to me, I said to my doctor, I said, I guess that's what normal people feel like. because, because I was like, it is the greatest feeling in the world. And I had it for like over a year, like maybe a year and 3 months, year and a half, whatever. And of course, now with the panic attack 2 weeks ago, it was gone, obviously. But now, as I sit here with you, about 95% feels good. That's the joy that I'm talking about. I never really joy like I'd sit out with the goats and I just have a tear coming down my face without even thinking about it. That's joy now to me. See, I can laugh deeper. Now, if you ask me why it came, he said it could be that what I went through in that movie. I can't tell you what it is.
Okay. Well, at least you got to that point, regardless of how you got there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, joy and happiness, it's funny. I used to think that really positive and happy people that were happy all the time, I used to think they had a really great life. Like, wow, their life must just be amazing. Everything's going so well for them. But then I realized that people who are happy and joyful and perpetually in a positive mood, it's not that their life is perfect. It's that they're choosing to look at things in a positive light and they're choosing to make their own happiness despite whatever circumstances they have. And I think it's a matter of really training our brain to look at the positive, to be grateful. And it is really a practice. Like you literally have to train your brain to go in that direction because I think it's so easy for a lot of us to just go in the opposite direction. So yeah, I think once I had realized that, it had become a lot easier for me to stay in joy and to stay in positivity because I realized, there's no such thing as like a person who has a perfect life or a person that's always happy all the time. It's really a choice and a practice and something that we need to work on.
Yeah, I mean, you said it better than I could have said it. That's about as perfect as you can say it. I'll say something on top of that. For me, because I still struggle with what you just said, so I'm working on that. But for me, what you have to do, I think, and I tell people this, is you have to be proud of being mentally ill. You got to be proud of being bipolar or anxiety. You got to be proud of it because when we come through it, it makes us better. It just makes us better. But you have to work on it, like you just said, in your own thoughts. But I always say when you go through hell, you come through the tunnel of hell, there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel. But you still got to work on that so the light can continue. That's the difference.
Right. Yeah. And whatever doesn't kill us makes us stronger, right?
Yeah, that is the key. I mean, look, because so many people say, I don't want to be, I feel ashamed. I said, look, it makes you stronger. It makes you a fighter. You get through it. It's just like anything, like a sports player, like a boxer. The toughest fight that he has, at the end of it, whether he wins or loses, he's going to be better because of it. And I love boxing. That's why I just made that analogy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the important takeaway that I'm getting from our whole conversation is that one, you shouldn't be ashamed if you are having any of these depressive thoughts or anxious thoughts or have any sort of mental illness. It's not something to be ashamed of. And it is something that you can work on. It's not, that's not your destiny. You don't have to stay stuck in that place. You can work on it. You can make changes and you can get to that light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes, absolutely. It's not impossible. It's very possible and you can do it. Don't say you can't do it. I know I say I can't when I'm in it. I literally say I can't. I say, honey, I can't do it anymore. But look, you and I are talking right now. This was 2 weeks ago that I said I couldn't do it.
And you're here.
There we are. And I'm here feeling great.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that's another thing that we need to like work on and think about are our words and what we say. Even in that moment, like saying I can't, or thinking we're not going to get through it. I think if we change that language, for me personally, I find that also helps me get through things a little bit easier, is when I don't allow myself to say those things, and again immediately change it to, you know what, I can.
Yes, you're absolutely right. That's what you should do. And I wish I could in those moments, but it's just sometimes it's like, I don't know how to explain it, but that's what anybody tells you. What you just said is what a psychiatrist would tell you to do and what I would tell you to do. But I try to be as realistic as I can. But in the moment, it just seems like it's so hard, right? I mean, but you still have to do what needs to be done. So even in that moment, you're not supposed to run. For instance, running, like in that moment I'll give you a little example. In the moment of a panic attack, I go in my bed under the covers and I'm shivering like a leaf and it's not cold. And I'm thinking, and then in my mind, I'm thinking I have the coronavirus and I get under the covers. Now, I should stay under the covers, but I have to get up. And so what happens is all night, I get in bed, get out of bed, get in bed, get out of bed, get in bed, get out of bed. So there's the pattern, no sleep. So what you should do is stay in bed no matter how hard it or how uncomfortable the feeling is. Stay in it and fight. Don't flee. But easier said than done. And I can't tell you that I did that. But by the third night, I think I did try to. Yeah. We're getting deep here in this conversation now.
Yeah, we like to get deep on this podcast.
Right.
No, I think that's a great, and I thank you for being so candid with that, because sometimes these, techniques and things are easier said than done. And when you're in the moment, they are harder to do. But again, this is a great example that you're still here, even though you said you can't, you can, and you're still here 2 weeks later. And B, that, you try and try again. It's a practice. All of these things are a practice. It's not something that you do once. It's like you can't expect to take a shower and smell, once and smell good forever. You have to do it constantly, right? Every day. So it's the same with all of these tools and techniques.
And also, let me bring another thing up here. During that 2 weeks, you got to understand where I was in my life. I had a book coming out that now I couldn't go to New York to do publicity for. I had coronavirus hit me. I had my mom and dad, we had a little bit of a argument. And I had my work shut down for 4 weeks. So it hit me hard. And that's when the panic attack started. Now you have to understand something. I thought that there was no publicity for the book. It was over. But HarperCollins is fantastic. And Heidi, the publicist, is amazing. And she still got me the publicity, but all virtual. But little did they know that I was dying of anxiety, art imitating life. So, but one thing that I have, here's where the strength comes in. I don't care if I'm dying. I will make you think I'm not dying when it comes to performing. It's just that my life suffers. But when it comes to doing Dr. Oz, this, that, Charlemagne the God, whatever, I will make you think I'm fine. And that's what I went through for 2 weeks. And, it's what's funny is the day they called me to tell me I was New York Times bestseller, I was numb. I had no emotions. I don't think I've ever heard any great news feeling like that ever in my life. So it was not good. Only until like an hour or so later, I walked outside in the sun and I started to cry a little bit. But that was what happened in those 2 weeks. Boy, you got the whole scoop here. You got my whole...
Yeah.
You got the whole.
No, I mean, I love that you're sharing all of this because, again, people think, oh, your life is perfect right now. You have a New York Times bestseller. You're on Dr. Oz. You're on this. You're on that, right? People think it's so perfect, right?
No.
And they're wondering why, like, their life is, not perfect. And it's so refreshing to see what's really going on behind the scenes and that you're sharing this with everyone. So it's really refreshing. And yeah, well, I'm glad that you're still here. I'm glad you pushed past all the anxiety. And how are you now? Are you putting on a show right now or you're good?
No, I'm actually great. What's funny is, and you have to understand something about life. That's the way life is, man. Life comes to you when it wants to. And why couldn't the publicity have been right now, starting the next 2 weeks? Well, I'm feeling amazing. Because that's not life. Man.
Well, you could do another 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, you could do another 2 weeks.
Right. Yeah.
Another 2 weeks on.
That's true. But I mean, life is like, I'd say it's like a roller coaster. You go up, you go down. You just got to deal with, when you're down, you got to know how to deal with it. But I'm thinking right now after this interview, I was like, damn, let me just take back all those other interviews because I know they're not as good as this interview because of the way I was feeling. They're good. They were decent because I could fake it. But when you're feeling good, it's going to be better. But then again, it may not be as authentic. I don't know. You never know. But what I'm trying to say is life, when you want something at a certain time, life doesn't want to give it to you. It comes when it comes. So I feel like Deepak Chopra right now.
Yeah, we just got to go with the flow, and life comes to us when it wants to come to us.
Right.
It's like you make plans, and God or universe laughs, right?
Yeah.
So one last question that I like to ask all my guests: if you have just one tip or one piece of advice that you can leave our listeners with on how they can live a happier and healthier life, what would that be?
This is something that I said a long time ago when I was auditioning, and I felt that I was great and nobody cared because I didn't get hired at that time. And I made it, I had my own saying to help me through it, which was deserve everything, expect nothing.
Very well said.
Yeah, it's just the way I felt at the time. So, and then there's another saying that my dad says is, lo que va a pasar, which means what's going to happen is going to happen. And that's how he lives.
That's a good way to live. Everyone else is living very anxiously, right? With all these expectations. But
right.
Yeah, that's a great way to live. Well, the book is called Nothing General About It, How Love and Lithium Saved Me On and Off General Hospital. Maurice, thank you so much for being here. Best of luck with the book and the rest of your press. And thank you for sharing all of your wisdom today.
It was a fantastic interview. Thank you. I appreciate it.